Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back for another episode of the Buckeye Roast. It's your boy Ron James here with my guy QP Ski. Q, how you doing?
I'm in here, man. I'm good. Not too bad. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. We got an action-packed show today. Tons of shit written in the show notes. So I guess we should jump right into it. The AP poll dropped yesterday, and the Buckeyes debuted at number 2. Your thoughts? Were the Buckeyes properly ranked here?
Oh man, action packed. That's a good question.
Oops.
I'll say, well, I guess I don't get the answer. Before I get to that, shout out to Craig. He was the first one in the chat. That was earlier. Everybody in here liked the video. We appreciate you getting in here, and let's get to it. So number two, I don't mind that. I mean, I feel like all the hype around this team. I would still say Georgia's kind of presumptive favorite, I would say, because they've done it in the recent history. So guys on that team have a lot of experience. So I think 2 is a solid spot. I see Oregon at 3, which jumping Texas a little bit. That surprises me a little, but I don't mind the top 5.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top 5. I thought Texas might have been ahead of Oregon, but it seems like the Oregon hype is through the roof. Any complaints with Ohio State not being one? I mean, they're returning an unstoppable defense. I mean, they have one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Did the Buckeyes get hosed out of the number 1 spot?
I would say I like number 2 spot, and the main reason is Georgia brings their quarterback back. We know Carson Beck is ready to go. He's proven he had a really good season last year, playing big time football. And I think Georgia got hosed a little bit with the one loss in the season, missed out on the playoffs, even though there wasn't really a spot for them. It's just kind of unfortunate. But that proven quarterback commodity, you bring back that defense, which we know will be good. I don't mind them at 1, and I'll take 2. I'd rather be the hunter than the hunted. So two's a spot where I'm like, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, it honestly feels good that they're at 2 instead of 1. The lack of pressure, I feel like the hype was starting to worry people during the offseason. Everybody was talking about Ohio State as the title favorite, and then you see them debut at 2. It's kind of good that it gets that pressure off of them, and it feels good knowing that we're 2 and we're being acknowledged. We're up there. We're almost there, but we're not quite the high expectations of being the number 1 team coming into the preseason.
Yeah, that along with that, at the end of the season, they always knock us out that number 1 spot. We never get that. We never get that bye or that favorable game. I remember a lot of times we're number 1 going down the stretch, especially thinking back to 2019. Of course, last week of the season, they find a way to flip us and give us the vaunted game against Clemson that we all remember, when it's like we really should be playing Oklahoma and knocking them out and let the other 2 battle, since we held this number 1 spot for so long. So go ahead and get comfortable at 2, because they find a way to put us there regardless.
Exactly. Was there anyone that jumped out to you on this list in the top 25 that surprised you? Maybe a team too high, too low, a team that you were surprised they were even ranked?
Let me see. Arizona at 21. I think this is the first time they've been ranked in preseason poll in a while. So I know they had a really good year last season, but I know they've had a lot of changes. So that's one that jumps out to me. I mean, Ole Miss right there at 6. A lot of Ole Miss hype, man. You said they're going to be a 3rd best team in the SEC. I'll see it. I think some of it's warranted, but I don't know. Yeah, they got to prove it to me. And then USC traveling to the Big Ten. If you watched minutes yesterday, you heard they have the walking into the Big Ten. They have the worst defense ranking walking into the Big Ten of 18. So they're 18 of 18. So it'll be interesting to see if they hold that spot. But we know, and maybe other conferences around the country don't know, the Big Ten usually houses 5 or 6 top 25 teams. I know that people think we just run through it and it's like playing in the Big 12 half the season, but usually it's pretty good teams. So them at 23 is one where I'm wondering if they can hold that spot or if they can advance into that 15 spot, because I figure USC, where they should be, is hovering around the middle of the top 25.
When you first started counting up Big Ten teams, did it take you a second to realize you also have to include Oregon and USC?
Not yet. I'm in mid-season form.
Yeah, my counts are always off. I'm like, let me go back store and make sure I attributed Oklahoma and Texas to the right conference.
When I counted and I don't want me to bring it up, but when I counted the freaks list, that one is there. I had to make sure I didn't miss any. So,
Absolutely. Some other news outside of the AP poll in regards to rankings, Rivals published a new top 250 list. Q, you want to tell us the surprises at the top of that, or maybe lack thereof surprises?
yeah, man, a little bit of recruiting news, but Tavian St. Clair hits that number one spot in Rivals. It's been a while since 2021 since we had the one number overall player. Well, not last year, but number overall quarterback. So it's been a little bit, but yeah, I like it. He's coming on with a lot of hype. Cam has hyped them a ridiculous amount, and my question for you is not just that he's at the number one spot, but and this is for you and the chat. Do you think Tavian St. Clair will crack the top two rotation next year? He'll be the starter or the backup. Where are you at with that?
I would imagine. I feel like there's going to be some attrition from this room, especially with the influx of talent coming in as far as Tavian St. Clair next year. Devin Brown's going to have a decision to make whether he wants to battle it out one of his last 2 years of eligibility, if he wants to run that risk and go into another camp battle for the third year in a row. Lincoln Keenholz depends on where he shakes out in the depth chart, and then you have a guy like Julian Sane, who everyone assumes is the presumed starter next year. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of attrition from that room, given the influx of talent with Julian Sane showing up, Aaron Nolan showing what he showed in the spring game, and then Tavian St. Clair coming in as the number one player in the country. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a push for that position at number
Yeah,
2,
yeah,
potentially even 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like he'll be in the battle from all I hype here about him, and as much as he works with Day and the guys, I feel like he'll be up there. I don't know if he's going to hold one of those top two spots, but I'll have a better answer at the end of the season when I realize who stays and who goes. I think if everyone comes back, I would lean more on no, but the noise is getting louder, louder, and louder about Tavian St. Clair, and the one thing for me is just the competition jump. I've heard he doesn't play the best competition in Ohio, but like I said, like we talked about, in the Buckeye roast, you get up around better players, it raises your game. So that shouldn't really be a problem if he's here for spring ball going into the fall of adjusting by the time camp starts. So we'll see, but it's a good question. I really don't have an answer yet.
Well, let's see if you have an answer for the prediction I'm looking for on Saturday. We have a big time decision. Top tackle in the class of 2025, David Sanders makes his decision on Saturday. The Buckeyes at one point were thought to be the favorite for Sanders, but things seem to have changed as of late. Your prediction for David Sanders' selection on Saturday?
This is a good one. The crystal balls are rolling for Tennessee. I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to be optimistic and say, yeah, and there's something that we will show that gave me some optimism yesterday. But right now, I don't know. I will say the crystal balls are there. I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic. I'll say in my heart, I think he wants to go to Ohio State. I think he's liked the program. He's liked the players around it. Justin Fry was very desperate to get this one done, and the name that's always been out there is Ohio State. I understand it doesn't go with the crystal balls, but sometimes they're off. Sometimes kids will throw, the recruiting experts off. So right now, I'm still cautiously optimistic that David Sanders chooses Ohio State on Saturday.
I'm not. I don't think he's coming here. He's going to Tennessee. I'm glad that you wanted to be the positive guy and leave some hope for Buckeye Nation, but Justin Fry's recruiting him, and we know how that goes. We just saw Josh Petty go to Georgia Tech. We're getting stuffed in the locker by Georgia Tech for recruits. I want you to let that sink in. We know that NIL is not an issue at Ohio State, so the fact that we are getting outbid, and it feels like almost to the point that we're paying a tax for having Justin Fry be our coach, because it's running up the price on these NIL deals for these kids because they don't want to play for him. I mean, I don't know. He has not signed a single recruit outside of his home state or the state of Ohio. So it's honestly mind-blowing that he still has a job. We were so ready to push Perigliano out the door for missing on KJ Bolden last year. It's like I feel like we're going to see that same level of energy after David Sanders picks Tennessee on Saturday.
I mean, that's a strong possibility. And we talked about it going back. You can't, you can't tell Perry, hey man, good luck, just from recruiting and not kind of hold that same standards to the coaches.
Why do you think
And
that is?
why you just can't?
No, why is this guy not held to the same standard?
I mean, he should be. There's no reason he's not. He's Ryan Day's best friend. So people will say that's the kind of
There
excuse.
we go.
And
Now we're talking about it.
he's cool with Chip as well. But necessarily, this might be the time where Ryan Day has to make a decision by the end of the season. I always will weigh on the field play as much as anybody, and I also know Perry was cheated a little bit because Jim Knowles wanted his guy. So that's the one thing where it's like, well, Jim Knowles just wanted his guy. If there was
Who's this
another,
guy?
this guy Matt G.
Okay.
Yeah, he wanted his guy, so that probably helped a little bit get Perry out the door. But I would say Justin Fry needs to have a really good line on the field this season. I think if he has a really good line on the field this season, and nobody has any complaints, everybody's happy from a natty run. They may not be burning down houses to fire him, but we get some sacks late in the season that knock us out of contention. I think the fans themselves will fire Justin Fry and go to the Woody and get him up out of there.
Yeah, man, I feel like the pitchforks are going to be out on Saturday if we don't land Sanders. And man, I would love to be wrong and celebrate and sing his praises, but it is not looking too hot for the Buckeyes. But we will wait and see. And that's definitely something to keep an eye on this weekend.
You got to show the graphic, though. The graphic is the one that was giving us some hope. I'll say, oh yeah, I put this in there for a reason. We might be getting catfished, or we might have some hope. There it is, David Sanders. So he took a picture, or he's selling merch in a Buckeye uniform. Does that change your mind at all? I mean, come on, you could buy that. You have that forever.
Yeah, right, man. They're going to be wearing those.
Tennessee.
They're going to be wearing those with Bengals Super Bowl shirts over in some different country. Like, what if, man, the Bengals won the Super Bowl a couple years ago? If you find those T-shirts somewhere, and I feel like it's going to be the same thing that people are going to be like, I thought David Sanders went to Tennessee. Why do you have an Ohio State shirt on? You got to get that last dollar before you flip on the Buckeyes, largest fan base in college football, right?
Say also his logo oddly looks close to an OSU if you really look at it.
Litigation Q over here.
I'm just gotta read the tea leaves.
Gotta read the tea leaves. A little house cleaning before we move on here. We got 30 people in the chat today. We are having some technical difficulties. We are not able to get the live up on Twitter yet, so we will probably run this show again, a re-air within the next hour once we're able to work out those issues with Twitter. But another platform that we're working on, our guy Doug was asking us if we are available on Facebook. We have a page for the Buckeye Roast. We put that link down in the description. So we are looking to get to 100 followers so we can start streaming live on Facebook as well. So if you're a Facebook user, you have an old Facebook from high school that you haven't logged in years, do us a solid. Go ahead and click that link below. Make sure that you follow and like our page for the Buckeye Roast, and hopefully we can start bringing the show to more than just, well, right now it's just YouTube, being that Twitter for some reason will not let us stream right now. Q, anything before we keep it moving?
Oh, yeah, man. Just put in those 5-star reviews, podcast, Spotify. Also working on those. Seems like the marketing team has really done their job to get us on all these platforms. So whatever makes it easy for you. I know everyone has podcasts out there or Spotify. Give a 5-star review on that. Ask a question, something like that. We'll throw that in here and keep doing that. We appreciate it. And like I said, I know Doreen does it, but hey, man, tweet out the show. We'll get the list of people who tweet out the show after we go live. Tag us in there, and we'll give you a shout out.
Absolutely. Shout out to Emily Gates as well, always showing love on the timeline and supporting us. So big thank you to all the people that watch and support the show on a daily basis, and definitely share the show on the timeline. I'm looking at the notes, Q, and this is the second time you tried to write this guy's name into the show, and I skipped over it last time. Go ahead, take it away. Talk about your boyfriend, your favorite player in college football.
Hey, man, that tweet will live in infamy. I'm getting the most juice I can get out that tweet, but it's not really about him. It's about Pro Football Focus. So they dropped their top 50 players in college football. They've dropped 50 through 41 right now. So as the weeks go, we'll get the reveal. I put the note in there. Kenneth Grant is in there at 41. And I put that to preference this. If Kenneth Grant is at 41, how many, and it's for you in the chat, how many Ohio State players do you think will make the top 40 best players in college football according to Pro Football Focus? So,
Is that question for me or just the chat?
No, it's for both. Give me a number of how many you think in there, because that is a preference. Kenneth Grant was a really good player last year, so that's kind of the bar. So, how many players do you think is on Ohio State's roster that's better than him?
Okay, you're gonna have at least Caleb Downs at the bare minimum. Potentially Quinshon Judkins. They're not going to show any love to the wide receivers. Maybe Emeka. I'm going to go 3. Emeka, Caleb Downs, and Quinshon Judkins.
That's a good number. Yeah, I'd say Caleb Downs most definitely. Quinshon's got to be in there.
Wait, you don't know the answer?
No, the reveal hasn't dropped yet. We don't know the top 40 yet. Every week they're going to drop a new 10.
Oh, I thought you had the answer for us. I wasn't even listening to you.
No, I don't. I'm just asking.
I was like, oh, this nigga got the answers. Who are they?
I do not have the answer. I do not. We will find out. We'll talk about what 40 through 31 next week. So we'll have the reveal. But no, I don't know the answer. But
we're not gonna find out till Christmas, bro. They're gonna be rewriting the list every week.
Hey, man,
I kind of cheat.
Let's hope he doesn't play better. There might be 0. But yeah, we'll see. But I forgot to throw that out there for you.
So no Buckeyes in the first 10, 40 through 50.
None 50 through 41.
It's probably because they're saving our starting 22 for the last 22 people ranked on the list.
Yeah, Devin
Buckeyes
Brown's 23, so you know we got a lot in there.
Oh man. Yesterday, our guy Chris Drew debuted an interview with Sonny Styles. Did you have a chance to check it out?
That I did.
Yeah, if you guys in the chat have not had a chance to check it out, make sure that you do. Had a lot of interesting things to say. The first thing that jumped out to me was a lot of people keep talking about using Sonny Styles in multiple ways, and he was quick to let Chris Drew, he's not the only person on that defense that will be used in multiple ways because there's so many guys that are so versatile on this defense. How exciting was that to hear, to know that Jim Knowles is really going to be able to get in his bag and start to really turn into that mad scientist that we heard about when he first got signed, or when we first hired him?
I think that's very important, and also too, that's something that we have not heard from the beat. We heard a lot of, I was saying, base defense, no reason to get crazy, no reason to take 4 linemen off the field, a lot of things like that. So it is good to hear, because we got a kid in Cincinnati that we need to get back from going to the SEC and come to Ohio State next year. So hearing some different things, maybe the rebirth of the jack position may come back. Hearing different things is definitely fun. We have the secondary to do it. Probably the best secondary in college football, or if not top 2, top 3, they'll be up there. So it gives you the ability to do a lot of multiple things. So I think it'll be fun watching this defense, and that's the Jim Knowles we want. I get it. He blew the game against Georgia. He shouldn't have played it so tight, whatever. I don't care. We have a completely different secondary than we had those years. So definitely it's time to get creative and unleash the freak shows that are on this defense.
Absolutely. Another thing that Sonny talked about was his development his freshman year. I mean, we had a heated discussion about playing time as a freshman on Sunday's episode of Buckeye BS. If you didn't catch that, make sure that you check it out. Always a great time on Sundays. But he said that the Georgia game was huge for his development between the bull practice, and he could tell early in the bull practice prep that he was going to be a part of the game because he was such a big part of the game plan. And then playing as much as he did in a game with such high stakes, what that did for his development. Your thoughts there? And then does it reinforce your guys' argument on Sunday? These young guys got to play, right?
I mean, you think? Of course, it was big for his confidence. And me and Chris Drew had talked about this for like a while. You probably got to stay at the program due here pretty soon. But we talked about it. I'm like, damn, if he could play against Georgia, the hell you couldn't find him anytime against anyone else. Like it definitely, and he said it's a huge big part of his confidence. And that's kind of the slate you want. You want not necessarily playing against Georgia, but you want guys to get a little bit of meaningful time in games as you go down the stretch. In their sophomore year, they're balling. We talked about CJ Hicks earlier in the show, not today, but in earlier week. He's not even confident, coming into this season because he hasn't touched the field in so long. And I'm sure it's not just him, but you think if he's a number one player in that class and he's not confident, what are the rest of the guys feeling that really haven't touched the field in years? It's just something where you throw them a ball and say, hey, you can play against Georgia, parlay that into a really good sophomore year. And Sonny Styles did that. And now we're looking at him as like, this is that all-American linebacker that we've waited for so long and ready to be unleashed. And it's because he's built upon that playing time. He played a little his freshman year. He gone sophomore year. He started. He pretty much balled out at 18 years old. Now his junior year, we're looking at him to be a monster. So I think that backs kind of what we were saying is these early snaps are important.
Absolutely. And it was good to hear him reaffirm that about, hey, getting on this field built his confidence and brought him an extra level of confidence coming into his sophomore year, given the stakes of that game. I mean, he was 17 years old playing for the chance to play in a national championship game. I don't think it gets much higher stakes than that, than the game, the next
Yeah.
game, which would have been the national championship. Um, he talked about something that Cam brought up on the first episode of Buckeye Roast this season, where Cam talked about his concerns about that transition to linebacker for Sonny Styles, because it's not just a physical transition. There's also a mental transition and almost like a switch that needs flipped as far as playing safety and then playing linebacker. The level of physicality that's required play to play by linebackers is significantly different than that of safeties. And Sonny Styles touched on that and talking about understanding that he needs to bring that physicality on every single play and that mindset of really getting into the trenches as far as taking on linemen, being able to shed blocks, and really just being physical at the point of attack every single play. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, Kim's right. I think it's very important. They used Sonny Styles in multiple ways last year, but when we did see him in the box, his athleticism showed. But it is a transition of shedding blocks and making tackles, and I think this is gonna go to James Laurinaitis' development. You have this guy who's a freak show. He hasn't quite played that close to the box. He may not be used to those things yet, but you're the All-American. You're the guy who went pro, and you're the guy who's back developing these guys. It's something where you have to get him right and get him the experience to be able to do that and really work that in practice. So it is very important. We know Sonny Styles has all the tools to be great, along with he touched on all the guys in this linebacker room. He said we have like freak shows out here. So they all have the talent and the ability to do this really well. It's just showing it. So I think this is something where we're going to look at James Laurinaitis and say, hey, did you get him ready? Did you get him ready to go and to ball out on this defense? And that answer will be revealed early in the season.
Yeah, I think that question will get answered fairly quickly during the season. I think Sonny Styles is more than capable of stepping up to the challenge of this transition, or they wouldn't have asked him to do it. And the way that they're talking about him, they normally, when guys are going through these types of transitions, try to temper expectations for them, calm the hype, make sure that they don't have too much on their plate. And they're out here telling people that Sonny Styles is going to be ready to go immediately. So that's a guy that I look forward to seeing. And I mean, it's going to be the first true testament under James Laurinaitis, the official linebackers coach. I know he's been coaching linebackers for a few years, but if he's able to take a guy that was in the safety room last year and have him playing all Big Ten caliber level linebacker this year, I think that'll be a great resume booster for James Laurinaitis. Sonny also was asked about the offense and what it's like to compete against such a high flying offense like Ohio State day in and day out in practice. And he said, Zone 6 is scary, but the running backs are crazier. So your thoughts on the running backs this year, and do you feel like they sometimes get lost because of Ryan Day's reputation for throwing the ball?
Yeah, I believe the running back room has been underestimated nationwide, but with the intro of Quinshawn Judkins, you really can. And you think going down to the season, the wide receiver room is going to be battling to see if they're the best in the country. I don't think anybody has any question that the running back unit better be. They should be, they are, and they better be going into the season because you have two top 5 consensus backs in America. You have two extremely talented guys. You have Chip Kelly walking in with this multiple run game, doing a lot of crazy things. So you would think those guys are going to really be the ones to flash early in the season, and a power run game maybe back in Columbus, which I know everybody's favorite is stretch to the boundary, but maybe a little less stretch to the boundary. Maybe getting these guys in space and letting them really ball out. So I believe this running back room will be the best in the country and probably the best unit on the offense right now.
Well, I want to stick on the offensive side of the ball. Yesterday, we hinted at a potential announcement. Yesterday, nothing. No announcement. No quarterback.
No Steph
Sleeping.
Curry.
People on the beat have hinted at the idea that Ryan Day should probably name the starter before someone has an opportunity to get hot during fall camp or
Too
make this
late.
decision any more difficult. Do you take anything away from the fact that we still don't have a starter? Do you feel like they saw something in the scrimmage that made them think, see how this goes?
Before I answer that, everybody put a like on that video. We're not streaming on Twitter right now, so make sure you like that. And if you got a minute, just go share it over there for people who aren't watching. And I'm checking out the chat. We got the return of college football Punk. He's back. If you haven't seen him, he was in here all last season. Punk's a regular. He's a UGA fan, so he's gonna give y'all a hard time.
UGA fan. He's
Yeah.
he's a Columbus legend,
At
a
heart,
Buckeye
at
through
heart,
and
he's a
through.
Columbus fan, but he says he's a UGA fan. So, but welcome back, Punk. We missed you. It's your man. But yeah, no, I think we talked about a little birdie yesterday. Had some news for us. We heard from a couple people about the scrimmage, and what it sounds like was a competition, and Ryan Day not naming a starter just yet lets us know that both guys were balling out. So I think that's a good sign going forward. I mean, I thought if Will Howard took the job 1 week into training camp, that's not a good look because he's running away with it. But it sounds like Devin Brown is balling. We've heard about multiple guys in the quarterback room, so I think that's good news to my ears. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's great news. I have in the notes written that we've seen this movie before, but the follow-up question was which movie? It feels like this is going down the path of an Ohio State spring of past, but I'm not sure which one. Is it the years past where we knew that Justin Fields and CJ Stroud were the starter and it was just a formality waiting for it to be named? Or does this feel closer to last year where we have another guy making the decision difficult right before they thought they had the decision already made?
I mean, it more feels like last year because we know Devin has all the tools to play ball here. I mean, he does. He just hasn't had the playing time. We talked about it earlier with confidence and playing time. That's the thing Devin is missing, and we know he's a confident guy from the way he talks in interviews and things like that. And so I think he's making it a battle. I just don't think he has the experience. And I know we talked about it Sunday of what is expected out of the quarterback room. And I was like, well, the standard is first rounder. It's a little off on that. The standard for Ohio State is one of the best players in the country. Not just quarterback, but one of the best players in the country. And if you go back, we talk about, you brought up like before Ryan Day, where the quarterbacks were as far as going pro. If we talk about best players in the country, Ohio State's quarterback position, maybe outside of a stopgap player here, stopgap player there, probably been one of the 60 best players overall in the country, dating back to Troy Smith. So that is kind of the standard for that room. I don't know if Devin has it in him to be the top 60 best players in the country, but we haven't seen it yet. But we believe Will coming here could be. So I think the fact that Devin's making a competition gives him some light. And I feel like that will push whoever wins this battle forward into like, okay, he's one of the best players in the country. And he's ready to go.
Yeah, it feels like this is Will's job to lose, but it definitely feels like Devin Brown's holding Ryan Day's feet to the fire and making him actually make a decision and not just give Will the job. And it sounds like they're battling, and you love to hear that going into the season, that there is still competition at the quarterback position. You don't want anyone getting complacent, and you want people to understand that it is a battle every day, and we're also battling for a national championship. So we're going to need that type of energy, like it's a battle every day in practice. We need that level of competition if we truly want to compete for a national championship. We got one more segment before we get out of here, but I wanted to get to a couple things in the chat before we move on. Posh says, my daughter made the best damn band in the land, 147, her final year. Yay. Congratulations to Posh's daughter for making the best damn band in the land. And shout out to all the other musicians that made it through tryouts for the best damn band in the land. So shout out to Posh's daughter and all the musicians that help bring the best entertainment on Saturdays to Columbus. And then our guy Craig says, I ain't seen Punk since Bama. Welcome back. It is good to have Punk back. I'm glad that he is here and has come out of his hole since their loss to Bama. So appreciate the comments. We didn't get a starter name. I still feel like Will Howard's the starter. And we may be jumping the gun, but I kind of like to be prepared and get ahead of things. If Will Howard's the starter, he's going to need a nickname. Last year we had Honda McCord, Hellcat McCord when he played well.
Quite the jump.
We have Lion Day. You know we like nicknames around here. So I want to get your thoughts on potential nicknames for Will Howard.
The Howitzer, Bill the Butcher, Will the Thrill, the Deputy, Willpower, Oppenhoward, this one. All of these are nicknames for the current K-State starting quarterback, Will Howard.
Did you hear anything on that list that jumped out to you? I'm not calling anyone Big Dick Bill before they throw a single pass at Ohio State. I hear Bill, or I hear Will the Thrill. I'm a bigger fan of Bill the Thrill. Your thoughts on a nickname for Bill Howard if he becomes our starting quarterback?
Bro, Oppenhoward is crazy. that's the one. I was like, yo, that's a crazy one. Yo, he better be. Hey, it's bombs over Baghdad. He coming. He want that as his nickname, bro. I need to see a deep ball season. Those are some funny ones, man. I don't know where you pulled that clip from, but hey, roll that again, man. Let's do that one more time.
You said, let me hear the options again.
The Howitzer, Bill the Butcher, Will the Thrill, the Deputy, Willpower, Oppenhoward, this one. All of these are nicknames for the current K-State starting quarterback, Will Howard.
Hey, I didn't even catch Willpower on the first time.
That's Willpower. That was the one. I was like, there was one more I kind of liked in there, Willpower.
Yeah, we're going to be cooking this year. We got plenty of options at quarterback, or plenty of nicknames for quarterback if Will Howard is named the starter. I've been going down rabbit holes of just trying to find, B-roll footage for highlight tapes of Will Howard and just trying to see what Kansas State has to say about Bill Howard on the internet. And man, there's a couple of documentaries. He had a rough start at Kansas State, and a lot of guys gave up on him or didn't think he was the guy early. They brought in multiple quarterbacks to replace him over his time here, and Bill just didn't go away. So if you do have some time, there's some cool little documentaries about Bill and his struggles early on at Kansas State, and then him eventually developing into a guy that has an 18-second cut of potential nicknames because he balled out so much towards the end of his career. Most Kansas State fans have good things to say about Bill despite his early struggles, and it was good to see that he's able to develop, and it shows that with the right coaching, with the right opportunity, this guy can get better. And I thought that was pretty reassuring as I was going through this little exercise of finding clips that I did see. Most Kansas State fans were happy with the progress that Will Howard made during his time there.
Yeah, and that's very important to what we need. It's development this season for all the quarterbacks. I believe we felt like that was a position last year that was holding the team back, and at the level we're recruiting outside of offensive line, quarterback is a consistent one. And it could be the equalizer if you don't have a great offensive line of getting Ohio State over the hump and winning a natty. Like I said a little bit ago, the quarterback has to be one of the best players in the country. I believe that is the standard. And chat, what do you think the standard is? Do you agree with me, or is it first round or whatever? Just let me know. But I think it's one of the
show. Someone commented on the show and said, how could you define the standard as first round pick when we've only had 4 in the history of this university?
Because we had 3 of the last 4.
That's right. Standard.
I mean, that's Ryan Day's kind of calling card. But like I said, if you want to stretch it back to 2003, 2004, 2005, it's been one of the best players in the country. They may not have all gone to crazy pro success, but we've never looked at Ohio State going into the season, maybe outside a couple of years, and didn't feel like our quarterback would be up there for Heisman's, would be up there for the awards, and would be a key in winning these games. Even you go back to JT Barrett, the stats he put up at Ohio State. He was one of the best players in the country as he was here. I know we hated, him throwing the deep ball as a passer, but he was. So there's not many that weren't the best player in the country that I can think of.
I got one more question before we get out of here. You said Ryan Day has had 3 out of 4. Are we sure it's only 3 out of 4? If Kyle McCord goes and balls out at Syracuse this year,
don't start this.
His first round pick out of the question?
If Kyle McCord leaves it is a first round pick, which I do not believe will be a first round pick coming out. If he is a first round pick, I'm gonna be like, man, where was this guy? I will be highly disappointed. But I wish all the success to Kyle McCord. I do not think he will be a first rounder, but he's got an NFL arm. I think he could be a top 3 round quarterback. And obviously, if Miami's having success in the ACC, we know the defenses ain't like that. So he could go in there and light it up. Shout out to my guy Gmo. He go in there.
McCord, ACC champion,
yeah,
playoff contender, first round pick. It could be a big year for Honda. Get some stock. I'm not a financial advisor, but
what's that?
I know you got a little change laying around from your game power stock. It wouldn't be a bad idea to call your broker about some Kyle McCord.
Oh, behind those cabinets is all cash for those game power cells. So I still got some left to go. But yeah, Chris Drew had talked about if you parlay that Syracuse Rutgers in the playoffs, pays out a pretty penny. That's all I'm saying. So for our pockets, maybe we need him to be a first round QB.
Yeah, I just want to get to one more note before we get out of here. Dan says that whole YouTube video is actually really good. That comes from the ballad of Will Howard and goes through his career through the Big 12 championship. Very fair and objective analysis. Yeah, so they go through Will's early struggles, talk about the people that they brought in over him, and then Will just stepping in every time his number's been called at Kansas State until he was ultimately the starter going into last year. And you saw what he was able to do. So yeah, man, if you have some time after you find us on Facebook and like and follow us on there, maybe go check out the Ballad of Will Howard. Also, make sure that you check out the Chris Drew and Sonny Styles interview over on Menace to Sports. That's all I got. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, I'm not hard to find. But first of all, shout out to everybody in the chat. It's good to see Punk back. Good to see all the familiar faces. Love having you guys in here. Don't forget to like that video, all that good stuff. You got podcasts or Spotify. I know you got one of them. Go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Leave a question. Like I said, Ron's getting the Facebook up there. So we got a lot of things going on.
We need 100 followers on Facebook so we can go live. You saw we're having technical difficulties with Twitter today. We want to broadcast the show to as many people as we can and continue to grow the platform. So if you guys could help us out, if you have Facebook, tell a friend. If your dog has a Facebook, make sure they like the page as well. Get that out there. We're trying to get to 100 followers as fast as possible so we can bring this show to Facebook as well. And hopefully we can get this stream up and going on Twitter sometime here within the next hour. So keep an eye out on that. If you didn't get enough of today's show, didn't catch the full show, got in here late, there will be a rebroadcast at some point today on Twitter, so keep an eye out for that as well. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2Ts. I actually just changed my name on Twitter, and I feel like that's the reason why we're having technical difficulties. I took the blocks out of my name, so I'm an easy search. Ron James or 2Ts. It's 2_TEES. We're here weekdays at 8 a.m. On Facebook, soon to be Twitter. So check us out here. We appreciate you guys tuning into the Buckeye Roast, and we will see you tomorrow.
The remix.
I forget how to do the show. Go Bucks and OH.
Now I won't play for you.
No IO? No IO for me?
I just said an IO. You couldn't hear me.
We're out of here.
Yeah.